Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Golf Insider webcast and podcast. I'm Jeff Bergerson, joined as always by my partner, Zach Turcotte. We are with FantasyGolfInsider.com, and you should go check us out and become a premium member if you have not already. Get access to some of the best tools, articles, and insight in the DFS golf industry. This broadcast is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Be sure to go on there and give us a 5-star review. Leave us good feedback on the feedback section. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you see this video as soon as it comes out every week. Zachary, before we recap last week's Memorial Tournament, we have a few shout-outs to give out to FGI Premium members who had a lot of success last week. Scott Larner, Richard Cornell, the real CCC, John Rigney, and Peter Molecue were some of the few that sent me emails or hit us up on Twitter and let us know that they had really nice weeks last week. So congratulations, guys. Keep up the great work. We've had a lot of new members upgrade to our European Tour package, and we will talk more about the European Tour with a special guest this week. I will tease
Very
that.
exciting. Yep.
If you have not yet signed up for the European Tour package on our site, go ahead and do so. I think it's a pretty good chance to get ahead of people who don't really know the European Tour players, aren't familiar with the European Tour. I think it gives you a bit of an edge, and as thin as the fields are these days, and especially this week, if you know any of these guys, you're going to have an edge from people who are just kind of throwing darts. So
definitely.
We can recap the Memorial now. Do you want to do that?
Sure, why not?
I hate to start with the negativity right away, but we have to talk about the PGA television coverage yet again. That is just absolutely disgusting.
It ruins it over the weekend.
I know you're really fond of it.
You can see it happening as the weather gets delayed.
Yep.
I understand what they're doing. I know they have. You don't
need people to tweet you explain.
People, I understand that there's a TV contract in place that says what needs to happen and why.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you is it's fucked up. Go ahead and fix it already. We wouldn't see this nonsense with any other sport.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you'd never see a baseball game go down that way. Oh, we had a 3-hour rain delay, but we're just going to go ahead and show you a tape delayed when the game actually starts again.
It's horrible.
It would never happen like that. In any other sport, you just go straight to live coverage when it happened. But no, yesterday we're about 2 holes behind. And even when they went live to CBS, I was hoping, all right, maybe they'll just go live after they'll put the weather break in there.
Yeah, I know.
We'll have a commercial and it'll be live again. We'll just miss a hole or two. No, we're going to play it out. I'm going to just be watching it on Shot Tracker as we go, and we're going to get another, ridiculous finish here that I'm already going to see on my phone ahead of time. So it was terrible again on all fronts.
Yep.
And I don't
just show it live, and then you're going to have an hour or two at the back end. Just fill, but at least you're going to have some viewers during the time you are on the air.
I mean, we are
because I didn't watch any.
No, I didn't really either. I mean, and you'd have to cut. What would you be cutting into there? Some infomercials
well, that's just
on
it.
CBS?
You're not playing a huge NFL game prior.
There's nothing on CBS.
So play that after.
Until then, but I mean, we can't possibly move things around or get the TV contracts renegotiated.
Yeah.
And so I understand. Yes, there's certain contracts in place. What I'm saying is, go ahead and please, pretty please, next year, without any more swearing on top of it, just go ahead and fix it for all of your golf fans out there, because there is a huge number of people like us who do want to see it live. And it's not like 15, 20 years ago when it didn't matter because you're not watching it on your computer and you're seeing it for the first time.
Exactly.
When it is running on tape delay. Now we just know that it's happened
I just do other things and just watch Shot Tracker.
Yeah.
I won't even tune in and watch your sponsors commercials that you're getting.
And I know a lot of people out there are probably getting bored with us complaining about it over and over, but
there's more.
But if you stop or if you don't say anything, and then it just kind of goes away. So we want to make sure that it continues to be an issue, that it continues to be heard over and over for them. So if you don't like it, that's fine, but we hate the coverage. So hopefully by next year, within the next couple of years, it'll eventually get fixed.
On to the positivity. The hardcore core had 13 of the 15 guys in it make the cut. A lot of big finishers who outproduced their price. I know you did real well with your daily spin picks. Only a couple guys missed the cut, and you had Willie McGirt.
23 out of 25. We had 20% McGirt in there. Obviously, one of our 4 core guys in Hideki Matsuyama let us down, which
a lot of other people.
And it was so razor thin between, am I going to go with him or Kuchar? Him or Kuchar right here. And I thought, well, they're both going to be very close in terms of ownership. I'm going to go with Matsuyama.
I felt Hideki had a little bit more upside than Kuchar.
I thought so this last week. It didn't quite work out at all that way. No. So we almost had 24 out of 25. It took Johnson Wagner really blowing up on Friday on the third to last hole with a double bogey to fall below and miss. But hey, 23 out of 25, I can't really complain about that.
No, that's solid.
Don't hit a lot of those weeks, and yes, I know it was just an invitational, so I understand.
There was only 120 guys.
I understand a higher percentage make it through the cut. I had a few people point that out as well. I said, if I get 92% of my guys through, I'm always going to feel good about it that week, unless it's a no-cut event. So
unless it's the Tour Championship.
Yes, exactly. So it felt pretty good about the picks overall. Having a lot of McGirt in there was good. So we did have a lot of folks that had some really good results for the week. So I don't have to go back and recap why so many guys didn't make it this week, which is fun.
Okay. Well, that's enough for the Memorial, I think. Do you want to get into our shots of the week, or you got something else?
No, let's do shots of the week.
All right. So I have chosen a guy this week that, frankly, I don't really like that much.
What a surprise. I think DFS golf was invented for us to hate pretty much the entire field of golfers.
Yep. And it's a guy, it's Hunter Mahan. And the reason I don't really like him is because a couple times I've seen interviews of him where he's been outright about not wanting to think that much about golf and not be consumed with it. He just wants to enjoy his wonderful, great life that he has. He's so blessed.
He's got a lot of sponsorships too.
Yes, he does. Every other commercial.
Yeah.
But that just kind of rubs me wrong, and it always has. I like the grinders. Although I didn't like Tiger as a person, I respected him because he grinded, he worked his ass off, and he always wanted to be the best. So that's what I appreciate about him. So Hunter Mahan better enjoy his life quickly, because the tour card's going to be gone pretty soon.
So we're going to do a shot to him being on the web.com tour pretty soon?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. In his last 13 tournaments, his best finish has been a 53rd. He's missed 8 cuts. In the season alone, this calendar year, he's went from the 50th ranked player in the world to the 150th ranked player in the world.
I think he's only shot below 70 like once or twice in all of 2016.
He's just been terrible. So let's do our shot of the week, and we have some Captain Morgan Cannon Blast to put a little fire in our belly,
Are they
which is what
now?
Hunter Mahan needs. So here you go, Hunter.
Cheers.
How'd Wacky Wagers go last week, Zachary?
Successfully.
Some more positivity.
Yeah, I'm excited. Knocked off Mover and Shaker 2-1.
What'd you win?
Another golf club. Another driver. This is a Nike driver to go with my lovely pink driver over here. So I keep racking them up. It's been amazing. People keep putting up just amazing things against me every week, which is always exciting. So
that's great.
So what I'm looking for now is hopefully we've got somebody who's got some old irons out there, or some nice irons. Yeah. Maybe we can. What do we need? A set of Callaways, a set of Pigs, something.
Yeah, tailor-made. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you guys want to put up. So I'm looking for a set of irons.
Or a hybrid. I mean, you could use one of those too.
A putter, perhaps. If people want to keep putting up golf clubs, I will keep accepting bets.
See if you can fill a bag.
Yeah, that's the goal. Fill an FGI bag of golf clubs. So yeah, won again this week. So the record improved to 14-10 overall in the season. So haven't embarrassed myself there too much yet, and we're slowly filling our studio.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff.
With a lot of fun stuff, so that's been good. And that reminds me to go chase down another Wacky Wager here tonight. So if you have some good ideas this week, get them out there. Obviously, next week will be a big one too.
Yeah, no doubt.
We'll start looking at those early as well. So
okay, all right. This week we have the FedEx St. Jude Classic, TPC Southwind in Memphis, Tennessee. Yardage is 7,239 yards. It is a par 70, 2 par 5s. So it was renovated in after the 2004 event So take that into consideration when you're looking back at tournament history.
I would hope you'd be discounting 2003 and before events anyways. But just in case, yeah, for everybody who's got the 25-year tournament history out to look at.
That's right. Well, if you're looking for David Toms,
you'll find
see how he's done.
Yeah, you'll find
it's key. It's his 25th appearance here.
That's exciting.
Yes, it is. This is the final tune-up before the U.S. Open, so we're going to see a thin field. Very few of the top guys in the world are going to be there this week. Just a handful, really. Not a deep field at all, and the pricing is pretty tough when you consider all of the scrubs in the field.
Go ahead and pull back gently this week on your bankroll.
Yeah,
as far as your total exposure, this is not the week to get fancy. As a few people learned the hard way last year, I know there were a lot of people last year, they saw DJ at this event, moved all their chips in on DJ,
and he withdrew
just because I think some of the top level guys, if they show up and they do well right away, will be engaged, and obviously they want to win. I mean, there's $1 million for his prize over the weekend, which can get a lot of people's interest, even some of the best players out there. But I think a lot of those guys, if they don't get into contention early, they'll just kind of pack it in a little bit. You know, you may see some of them make the cut, but maybe they just use the last couple of rounds to fine-tune a couple things within their game. So definitely a good week to pull back the reins a little bit, especially in the cash game area, because there's so many guys typically that you would see in the low to mid 6 range who are now in the mid to high 7 range or even the 8K range. I mean, and looking over the roster this week, there were a few names that jumped way up in terms of price that make it kind of tough to stomach those guys. So I would say cut down a little bit on the GPPs, stick with the GPPs, cut way back in terms of your cash game exposure, and just overall lower your total exposure for this week's event and just enjoy it for what it is, I guess, which is a decent tournament to watch.
Key stats this week: strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained putting, greens in regulation, birdies or better, and par 4 scoring.
Yep, and then we also in looking at it, approach distance between 150 to 175 and 175 to 200 were a couple other ones.
So how about 150 to 200?
We could say that, but that's not one statistic. You have to actually look at both statistics, and it's funny when there's certain guys who are really good in one and then just terrible at the other one. So it is kind of funny how it breaks down.
Sounds good. Should we break down some players in the field this week?
Yeah.
Let's start at the top.
All right.
I know DJ is heavy on your mind this week.
I got to fade him.
12,800. He's a complete and utter fade for you.
Yeah, and I faded him in GPPs last year, which worked great. I got lazy at the end, threw him onto one cash game, thinking I could sneak him through, and of course he crushed me after 9 holes with the withdrawal. But at 12,800, he's got to finish right at the top in order to make value, and he's been very good all season. So I know that there are going to be points when he will threaten to do so, but I also know that he's got to have his eye on next week's event much more than this event. I mean, that's really where a lot of people are expecting him to shine and do really well next week. So I think he'll do well this week. It's very, very difficult to live up to 12,800 in terms of the price. We saw it again this last week with Day, Spieth, and Rory, where all three of them underperformed.
They did.
You know, Day had been just playing epic golf over the last few months. He caved in the last day. Really disappointing. Spieth obviously was terrible for his price. Rory actually did reasonably well, but still didn't perform as well on a dollar per point basis as opposed to a lot of the other guys if he would have dropped down a little bit. So I just think it's a smart play this week, just to fade DJ at the top and save some of your money by dropping down, because you're going to need it unless you really feel like getting into some garbage.
I don't like the players below 7,500, so I will be fading him as well. And also last week in my article, I talked about fading Matsuyama and Kuchar as well, and just fading all 5 of those guys because I thought their ownership would be huge. Obviously, Matsuyama paid off huge. Kuchar came back, but none of the $4, $33, or the $333 winning teams had Kuchar in it. So it just goes to show that it takes a really amazing performance by these guys to just totally burn you on a fade. Because even Kuchar, I mean, he was a T4 at his price, and you could have still won any one of those GPPs without him. So.
Yeah, definitely. Who are you going to start your roster with then?
I'm going to drop down to probably Ryan Palmer at 10,800 and Gary Woodland at 10,400. I think will be my guys. I think Phil will be somewhat heavily owned as well, and as well as Brooks Koepka. So,
all three of those guys at the top for sure in the 20%.
Yep. So Gary Woodland's been playing tremendous golf lately, kind of quietly.
Yeah, he really had a good shot to win this last week.
He did.
He kind of kicked it in there on the back nine a little bit. I thought he was probably the guy. I didn't think McGirt was going to hold on. I certainly didn't think Curran would be up there. I thought it would probably.
Well, you knew it wouldn't be DJ.
No, I knew it was Sunday, so I knew the DJ would fade down the stretch. I kind of thought Woodland would be there at the end, and he ended up fading a little bit.
I thought Kuchar would just kind of all he needed to do at one point was just coast,
just par the rest of the way.
Yeah, it's kind of what he does anyway.
And he was awful.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, it was terrible. It was really bad. He had to save a couple of long putts just to stay as close as he did. So
dropping down a little bit, I know you're going to be all in on Wesley Bryan.
Yeah, in case you guys don't know, when you saw the $9,000 price
for
tag
a guy you've probably never
next
heard
to him
of.
Before, he is a Web.com tour player.
Yep.
Who's won twice.
Yeah, he's
over
been
there.
really good lately.
He's made 8 or 9 cuts over there, 6 times in the top 25, and 4 times in the top 10. But he's $9,000. He's the 11th highest priced player on DraftKings this week, and he hasn't played in a tour event all season long. And here's the scoop on him as far as if you're not going to go look at the numbers. He putts sensationally well. He leads the Web.com tour in putting, and that's kind of propelled him to being one of their leaders in terms of scoring average as well. But his ball striking, really overall, kind of below average, even for the Web.com tour. So I'm anticipating that the leap in terms of course difficulty here probably will take a little bit of an adjustment. That's not to say he won't play well.
No.
I just hate him for that price.
Yeah, he's going to pay off a $9,000 price tag.
I mean, if he's sitting there if he's even at like 7,000 or 7,500, I can see buying a few shares of him. But the list of guys that I would have to pass up in order to own him.
Proven guys week after week on the tour who are making cuts.
Yeah.
I am elected to drop down beyond him. So
yeah, absolutely. So interesting play this week. I think at 9,000 he will certainly be underowned, even for the people who figure it out.
I'm torn on this. I'm not sure that he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna be heavily owned, but I think people like that shiny new toy to play with all the time. And when a new name pops up, it seems like they always gravitate toward him, whether it's a European tour player, a Web.com guy. So I think he's gonna have some ownership. I don't think he's gonna be under 5% or anything. But
I can see 5 to 10, 5 to 7, that kind of range.
Yep. So dropping down a little bit, you mentioned John Curran. He's been playing really well lately. He looked good last week. I'm comfortable with him at 8,300. If you just want to ride the average.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he's probably getting to the point where he's a little bit overpriced in terms of what he brings to the table. I mean, last week was a great finish, but I mean that's atypical for somebody like that.
No, he's good now.
Yeah, I would rather drop down a little bit, and you get down to 7,900, and you get a guy like Brendan Steele, who's a much more known commodity.
Right.
He doesn't have a ton of tournament history here. He's missed the cut way back in previous years, once or twice, which I'm not going to look at too closely. But the stats overall line up pretty well. Good tee to green game, good score, and he's been playing well. 3 or 4 top 20s over the last month. So I like Brendan Steele quite a bit there in terms of a value play.
Plays well in the first round or two generally, and then fades away
Saturday
on the
and
weekend,
Sunday.
So.
Yeah, you could just see him slipping further and further
But
back.
if you get him through the cut at 7,900 in a week where we have a 150 player field again, going to be tough to get 6 of 6 through. Yeah, not a bad play if he can start fast and make the cut.
Now, this is a course where a lot of veterans tend to play almost every single year. Are there a couple of guys in that range that you like?
Yeah, well, I like David Toms at 7,600. Like I mentioned before, he's in his 25th year here. He's won this thing twice. He's got a bunch of top 10s. And he's got great current form coming in. I think he's only missed 1 cut over the last couple of months. So I feel comfortable with him. I'm okay with Boo Weekly at 8,000. The only time that he's really played terrible is when I own him.
Yeah, when you've had him a couple times.
But he's not a bad play at 8,000 either. Dropping down, how about Will Wilcox at 7,400?
I think he's going to be real popular this week.
I do too.
2 for 2 in terms of top 20 finishes here, and he's a DFS darling.
Right.
So people are just
they want to root for him.
Waiting to get their claws into the guy. And for that reason alone, I think otherwise I'd probably give him a shot. I feel like his game, it's somewhat turned the corner. I mean, it starts to feel like he's turning, and then he misses a cut.
Right.
And so the stats obviously are not really showing it because he was so bad at the beginning of this calendar year.
Correct.
I think he will get it together, but I think just due to the fact that at 7,400, and I think that he will be a little more heavily owned. I think there's other guys I can bounce to this week that have been more consistent this year that I would just much rather own.
Like who else in that 7K range would you?
Definitely Tim Wilkinson.
Right.
He has been fantastic for us since we started looking at him a little over a month ago or so, I think it was. I think he's made 7 or 8 straight cuts now. He's had a couple of top 15 finishes.
Right.
Just over the last month. Every statistical category looks pretty good. His tee to green game is really solid. Putting game has been fantastic. The approach distance is the two that we talked about. He's actually better than probably anybody else in the field this week from that range. Pretty good score. So I think everything really lines up for him to continue along with his run. And at 7,200, I think he's really underpriced compared to a lot of the other guys that are playing this week. So I like him a lot in that range. Another guy, if we're looking at old guys, Retief Goosen.
Sure.
Him and Tom's obviously both guys who've got quite a bit of experience in this tournament. Just over the last 7 times out, he's made the cut 5 times. And typically the finishes have actually been pretty good. So I like him in that 7,600 range. I think he's only missed 1 cut all season. He's made something like 10 in a row, which is pretty impressive, particularly for an older player. So looking for a guy with a little bit of experience who's playing well. I think Goosen is another guy kind of in that range that sort of fits what I would like this week. Is there anybody else in that value range?
I'm not gonna be going with many guys below that 7,500 range just because I'm not gonna go with stars and scrubs. I'm gonna stay more middle of the road. If I did go with a guy, and probably in the hardcore core, I might go with Camilo Villegas. I know you're high on him this week. He has certain courses where he plays really well, and this is one of them. He's only missed 1 cut in the last.
Yeah, and there's just a handful of guys. I think when you look at course history, it's interesting with certain guys like Camilo, where they just show up again and again for really no rhyme or reason. There's nothing statistically in any year that the guy plays where you would say, oh, of course he's going to be a good fit here at St. Jude. I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense when you look at it, but there are those handful of courses where he's just there again and again. And it's different than certain other players. As you look at certain players who have progressed throughout their careers and gotten better and better, in those cases, that's more the case where I tend to ignore tournament history a little bit more. When you see a guy like last week, J.B. Holmes was a good example. When he's down at 7,600, he's been having just a tremendous season overall, but he had missed a couple cuts. Right? So everybody's off him. Nobody owns him, but he's a completely different player. I think that's a really good case of when you want to kind of throw out tournament history. Or even Jason Day. If you looked at his course history last for the Memorial, he really didn't have much. But again, his skill level had elevated so highly that I think those are kind of the cases where you want to start to look at course history and say maybe less emphasis. But with a guy like Camilo, who's pretty much the same player year in and year out, I think it's a stronger indicator with players like that than normal. So I think that is a solid play. Down at 6,900, I definitely like that.
The only other guy that I like way down there, and I don't really like him, I could tolerate him, I guess you could say, at 6,200 would be Johnson Wagner. He burned you last week, but he had made a bunch of cuts coming into that. He's a guy you could basically flip a coin to see
whether he makes it one way or the other.
Whether he shows up or not. But at 6,200, I think you're not going to get a lot of better options down in that range. So I would feel most comfortable with him for a punt.
I think this week I may take a shot. This is another hold your nose one.
Here we go.
But this is coming back up a little bit, back to 7,000. I think this might be a Patrick Rogers week.
Oh boy.
What do you think about that?
I don't even know.
I know you. It's hard to even say it, but
Wow, did he try hard to miss the cut last week?
And he was successful.
Oh my God.
He completely crumbled down the stretch. I'd kind of given up on looking at it because there were only a couple guys left. And, and then you told me Patrick Rogers missed. I thought, how the hell did he do that?
Way.
Oh, he double bogeyed in the end. Okay, that's the way to do it. I think at 7,000, we're starting to get to the events in the year where he's going to start to play well. We're going to get into these weaker field events.
Yeah.
These are the type of events last year where he started jumping up. He's been playing for most of the calendar year, and he's been playing in some of those tougher events on those tougher courses.
Yeah.
And it squashed him. And I think it hurt his confidence a little bit too. We're going to get back into events like St. Jude here, the John Deere, events like that, and he's going to start to build up his confidence again. And I think at 7,000, there's certainly plenty of upside there. I mean, there's definitely talent there.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not saying to go out and throw him onto a bunch of cash game rosters, but I would say like a 10% buy this week on your GPP teams would be pretty reasonable considering what he is capable of delivering. So just a guy who's kind of a hold your nose pick that I think could do something for your teams.
Okay, should we save the rest for the daily?
Yeah, I got
spin
I got a couple other good ones.
Premium members.
And I'm not going to divulge them here because we keep getting every couple weeks or so somebody cancels their subscription and says you guys give so many good picks on the podcast and
we're not doing it
so much free stuff that we're gonna have to cancel. Which so thank you for your feedback. we're gonna make sure that we keep it contained at least a little bit. And keep all that stuff into the premium section.
So now that we've covered the PGA Tour, let's talk a little bit about this week's European Tour event. And to do that, we brought in the newest member of Team FGI, Pari, or you may know him as Hit the High Draw, is going to talk a little bit about this week's Lyoness Open. Pari, let's kick it over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Pari here to talk about the European Tour. We're coming to you live from Austria this week, and we've got a pretty difficult task this week at the Diamond Country Club. It's par 72, 4 par 5s, 4 par 3s. Scoring over the past few years has been pretty low, about 15 to 20 under. A lot of former winners are in the field this week. We've got Jude Luton, Bernd Wiesberger, and Chris Wood, who's defending champion, also defending champion from the last time he played. One thing you want to look at this week for scoring purposes would be par 5 scoring. If you have players that are PGA Tour worthy and have some stats there, that would be a good place to go. As mentioned previously, European Tour stats are garbage, so I don't put a whole lot of stock into them, but it's nice to have a reference. As far as guys off the top, we've got Wiesberger at 11,600. He's won here previously. He's been runner-up previously. His current form is decent. I think I'd rather take a chance with him over Jude Luton, who's, I mean, come on, we know what we're getting with him. As far as a value play this week, I'm looking at Callum Shinkwin, who is playing really well in his second year on tour, on the European Tour. He does a lot of things pretty well. His driving distance is very long off the tee for a young guy, and he scores well on par 4s. And as far as deep dives this week, we're looking at Matthew Millar, an Aussie, who doesn't have any course history here. His form is very, very, very good. He's got 3 top 20s in his last 3 and a 23rd prior to that. Another guy that I think will be low owned this week. So those are the plays this week, and back to you guys.
Thank you, Pari, and thank you all for tuning in.
That was awesome.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Be sure to email us at info@fantasygolfinsider.com with any questions about strategy, roster composition, bankroll management, anything like that. You can find us on Twitter at @fantasygolfers. And you can join Zach on Periscope at 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time on Wednesday night. Otherwise, good luck this week for the FedEx St. Jude Classic, and we will be talking to you next week for the US Open. Good luck this week, guys.
Good luck.
So what should we do here? Like, you can say coming to you from Austria at the Diamond Country Club with my new Masters jacket. Can you hear me? Check. Mic check. Do I have to talk like this?